What is up, guys? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're covering some more r/relationships. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below, but if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too, as it all really helps out our channel. And just a huge thank you for taking the time to have your day to be here. Absolutely amazing level support, and I'm just so thankful for it. So thank you so much, and let's just crack on with today's stories. Much love, guys. Now, our first story comes from a throwaway account. My dad shows just how worthless he is. How do I deal with this new anger? My biological father is leaving his mother, my grandma 70, with the only option of selling her house. The guy mentioned above turned to drugs not long after I was born. My grandma, his mum, has given him a tremendous amount of help in so many ways to help him get his life together. I could make a long list of things she did, but that would make this post far too long. She is an angel. I never knew him since my mother kept me away from him while he was using. He did not get clean until I was around 6, rarely paid child support. After getting clean, he never made the effort to re-enter my life. Even though after getting clean, he never lived more than 10 minutes away at his mother's house, my grandma. He finally moved out about 2 years ago when I was 19, so we lived with her for about 13 years. He has always been a worthless father in my eyes and is now also a worthless son. Today I visit my grandma, his mother. She tells me once her kitty passes away, she's going to sell her house and move into assisted living. She told me she is choosing this option because the guy noted above is her only family in town and barely answers her calls. Takes days to return the calls. Makes empty promises of things he would help her with, for example, shoveling snow and changing light bulbs. She is very healthy and active, but she knows her limitations. She says he's not reliable to check in on her to make sure she is okay, so she feels more safe being around a community like assisted living. Mind you, he lives no more than 7 minutes from her and has plenty of time in his day to give her a call. I'm not implying that he owes her anything because she birthed him, or that this should be his responsibility to watch after his mum in her old age. It's the fact that this woman spent so many years, put so much effort and stress into him to help him get his life together. Now he can't pull in a small amount of effort to at least give her a phone call, lend a hand, do literally anything to return a favour. I wish I could step in more, but I moved away for college. This situation breaks my heart and makes me angry. She lended her open arms for years and years and he can't even offer her a hand. How do I deal with all this? We've never had a relationship and currently have almost no communication, so this isn't something I feel comfortable confronting him about. This isn't about me and I'm not a main character. Now what? Now most of you know my situation and I have quite a few elderly relatives around and stuff like that, and it's very hard for people as they get older to accept their vulnerability, and I've seen it time and time again, and I don't mean any disrespect by doing that, but I see elderly relatives in my circle, you know, that are really vulnerable but they don't want to accept it. So for your grandma to step up and make this choice I think is an amazing thing in my opinion. And I say this mainly because, you know, your father, her son, isn't reliable. If he did step in and was giving her a hand now because you mentioned it or you did something about it, how long would that last? How reliable would it be? You know, she might start relying on him and then him drop out again. As you say, he's a bit of a shady character by the sounds of it. So I think this is a great move for her. Assisted living is amazing from what I've seen of it. I had an elderly relative who was in assisted living last year, passed away unfortunately, but they loved the end of their life. They had their own space, but they was cared for, they was watched out for, they had alarms and stuff like that, and they had people checking on them a couple of times a day, bringing them food and all this kind of thing. It was an amazing setup, and for her to realize her own vulnerability is equally amazing. So I would step back and I would accept that and just help your grandma. Don't even worry about the other guy that you call him, the father, the son. Just do not worry about him at all. He's a nobody in your lives, and just help your grandma as much as you can and be there for her, and you give her the phone calls when you can too. But Drago1 in real life says, great name, support your grandma in her move. Refuse to acknowledge him. You're entitled to how you feel. And Math Hatter says, OP, I understand that you're angry, but it sounds like she's making a good choice for her future. Even if he were a doting son, assisted living might be the right choice in the longer run. Living alone as an elderly person is pretty dangerous, and it's very possible that she has no regrets. That she would make the same choices all over again, with her head held high. It's totally okay to be angry with your sperm donor, but I suggest making sure that in the process you're not making your grandma's decision any more painful. And Brave Little Toaster says, this is a best case scenario for your grandma. Taking care of an elderly family member is hard for people who have their shit together. I don't think you really want to trust your grandma's well-being to your father in particular. Assisted living will provide your grandma not only with help she may need in a medical emergency, but also with the companionship of other people living there. My great-grandfather lived about 10 years after my great-grandmother died, and the first couple of years he was miserable. When he medically couldn't live on his own anymore, he agreed to go to assisted living. It was exactly what he needed. All of a sudden, he didn't just have his daughter as his only friend, he had dozens of friends his age and things to do. I know it can seem like he's abandoning her because it's what he did to you and there's a pattern recognition there, but if seeing her isn't an obligation, they may both enjoy their time together more. Now, what do you guys make of this story and how would you deal with it? Do you think grandma is making the right choice? Do you think the son should step up in this situation? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And our next story comes from a throwaway account. My mum is making me keep the abuse I went through a secret. My ex-husband abused me pretty badly. Whatever abuse you could think of, and made it 10 times worse. That's what I had to go through for 2 years. I've been divorced for 1 year now, and I'm still going to therapy because of it. I never let anyone pursue me. He ruined me forever. While I'm going through all this shit, he got engaged. I shared with my mum that I want to text his fiancée and tell her that he's not who she thinks he is, and he's an abusive rapist psychopath, but my mum told me not to. Maybe he's changed. He's starting a new life. Don't be the person ruining new beginnings. She's the first person I told about the abuse. She told me not to report it, not to take the rape kit, not to press charges, not to tell his family, not to tell my dad, not to tell anyone else, or I'll just be another victim. People would just see me as a weak woman or someone who couldn't defend themselves. I can't just sit back and watch what happened to me to someone else. What if he didn't change? I can't believe he could change, no matter what kind of therapy he goes through. He would manipulate his therapist. I know so much crap about this man I could ruin his whole life and career, but I'm not doing that because I love his family. My mother threatened to cut me off if I ever do anything about it. She said I'm not over it. Well, yes, I'm not over it, but I don't want to tell this woman what he did just to ruin his life. I'm telling her because I love her. Even if I don't know her, I don't want anyone ever to go through it. It's not envy, it's a warning. I wish I could just close my eyes and wake up. with someone different with a different life and no past, but I'm here trying to make the right decision. His mother would totally come after me for telling that to his fiancée. Did I mention that I ran to her once to tell her everything and asked her to stay until my mum could get me, and she called him to take me home? First, your mother is just I don't even have words. I want to swear something chronic here because she is an absolute monster to tell you that you just look like a victim and you look like a weak woman. No, you're a survivor that's gone through a bloody hell of a lot here. And sooner you get her out of your life, the better. She's almost just as bad as your ex in some ways. But then I would think about putting myself in this other person's shoes, his new fiance. Would you want to know in that situation? Would you want to know his past? And how would you feel once you found that out? And being that person, would you be able to stay with that person who was an ex-abuser and all the stuff he did previously? Obviously, it's a very, very dangerous game here because she might not believe you unless you have some sort of proof of all of this. But please, just do not let people sweep your story under the rug and make out like it was nothing. You've been through a hell of a lot. And I personally don't see nothing wrong with trying to protect another human from a potentially dangerous person. But again, I would say make sure you are protected yourself first. As you said, you've been through a hell of a lot here, and the last thing you want is more abuse from whoever in the situation, right? Because it's a bloody mess. So please look after yourself as well. But Ripe Cantaloupe says your mother is despicable. She should be your advocate, not the one with a broom shoving you under the rug. You are her family. She should be storming the gates with you to get justice, but instead, she's the coward. She doesn't want the drama in her life. She doesn't care about you or the damage done to you in this situation. That's disgusting. I would have cut her off for this. Why keep such a woman in your life? Stand up for yourself and get your justice any way you can. An EC Texan says, after I left my abusive husband, my mum told me to go back and try to work it out because divorce is a sin. Sometimes mums do not know what's best. I also tried to warn his next wife. She didn't believe me, even though she had been charged with DV and the court records were freely available online. Apparently none of his next 3 wives believed it until they experienced it. They never do. I think your intention is good. I've been there and I know, but if I were you, I'd stay out of it. Stop worrying about your mum and his mum and everyone else and focus on your healing. And Parkesk says and quotes, don't be the person ruining new beginnings, and then says, that's what he did. Your mum ruined your chance to get justice and maybe enabling him to make another victim. And if you can stop that from happening, do it. And fuck his family. If you ruin his life, so be it. And Saymaker says, first off, your mum is terrible. I wish you didn't listen to her at all since the beginning. She obviously cares about him and her own public image more than you. But at this point, if you said anything with good intentions to his fiancé, there's very low possibility that she would take you seriously. If you really want to save her, you need to show her proof, not your words. Personally, I wouldn't believe an ex-wife if there is no proof. Plus, he can take revenge, so be careful. And Willing Feeling says, you have the right of it 100%. You're doing this out of love and desire to protect another woman from having to go through what you went through. You sound incredibly brave from your post, and you're right, it doesn't sound like he can change. Be careful going forward, and I wish you all the luck in the world. Now, I turn this one to you guys. What do you think OP should do in this situation? Do you think they're right to get involved and try to warn this other woman, or they should stay out of it and, focus on healing themselves? Let us know in the comments below. And our next story is from a throwaway account. I'm watching my boyfriend slowly become a terrible person. Sorry if this post is worded weirdly. I'm a bit of a wreck. I feel so horrible. That's the only way I can describe it. I don't remember the last time I genuinely felt happy to be living. I've been in love with the same guy since I was 14. We're 19 and 20 now. I guess it's codependent as fuck, but he really did just make my life so much more worthwhile. He's always been so kind too. The amount of shit he's done for me is ridiculous, just so fucking smart too. Life of the party everywhere he goes. Genuinely gorgeous, hilarious, etc, etc, etc. Just an exceptional example of a human. And now, he just isn't. It's like he's dead and been replaced or some shit. He's outwardly cruel to me, not physical thank God. Rude to strangers, rude about strangers, randomly hateful towards certain groups. Looks fucking mad at all times. His body language is so much more aggressive now. When he speaks to people he used to think the world of, it all seems so fake, like he's having to hide how much they piss him off just for existing. He hardly smiles around me anymore. I don't know why he hasn't left. He seems to borderline hate me. Sex used to be incredible and now he just uses me for a while and then goes to sleep. Last night, he was telling me I'd put on weight, like 5 pounds, and how disgusting I was going to look if I carried on. Literally out of nowhere. What do I even say to that? Fucking bye for one, I guess. I don't know why I'm still here either. I keep trying to seriously talk to him, and I just get laughed at. Told to fuck off or argued with some way. I guess I'm just waiting for this to pass and the person I love to come back. I know it's stupid and naive, but I can't help it. He wouldn't have abandoned me if this was the other way round a year ago. I'm just so disappointed. We both had beyond shitty childhoods and I always admired him for being so fucking great in spite of that. He can't keep this up forever, can he? Eventually something's gonna give. He must be going through some really terrible internal shit to be acting like this. Now let's face it does sound like this guy is going through something else to suddenly change, for his behaviour to suddenly change. And I read in one of OP's comments that it was like this all started about 3 months ago and has slowly built up. Yeah, so it does sound like something's gone, something's triggered, whether it's mentally or whatever. But that is no excuse to treat your other half like that. The comment about the whole weight, that you put on weight and you're going to start looking really rough soon or whatever he said. That you're going to look disgusting is what he said. If someone said that to me, if I was with a partner who turned around and said that to me and said, look, you're putting on weight, you're going to look disgusting. I don't mind people bringing up my weight, and stuff like that. But if someone said that to me, I'd be gone. There is no way I'd let someone disrespect me like that. Sit down, ask him what's up, or things will have to change. I think it's really that simple, that an ultimatum needs to be laid out here. Either, he wants to fix his relationship or he doesn't, and it needs to be sorted, right? And I think that is the only way for it. You can't just wait for something to happen, something to explode. That's not going to be good. But Ron Swanson says, and quotes, "Now he just fleshlights me for a while then goes to sleep. Last night he was telling me I'd put on weight, like 5 pounds, and how disgusting I was going to look if I carried on. Then he says, this relationship is over." And Leslin says, "He sounds really bitter, and as the saying goes, misery loves company. Don't let him pull you down, and remember you can't change someone who won't change themselves. Good luck." And Schnauzer Butt says, "People go through a lot of changes up until the age of 25, and he's changing into an arsehole. It's time to cut him loose because he's not what you need." And the Haunted 420 says, "This relationship sounds over. He isn't showing any kind of care for you and uses your body for sex. It's not some terrible internal shit. That's sadly just his true personality." And that boss guy says, "You aren't giving quite enough details here. I have a few questions. Is this sudden? Did this behavior start after a certain event? What major changes have happened in his life? Do you want to continue this relationship? Are you only still here because of the sunken cost fallacy?" And OP replies, "Kind of. It's been a slow thing over the past 3 months, I want to say. I don't think there have been any major changes in his life, but I guess there's a chance he just hasn't told me if there has been. I still love him, which I know makes me a fucking idiot, but what can you do?" But what would you do in this situation? I turn it to you. How would you deal with this situation? The comment about the weight really gets to me for some reason. It really jumped out at me, and I just don't think that just shows the level of disrespect in the relationship, and I would be out of there from then. But what would you do? Let me know in the comments below. And our next story comes from Throwaway Chill Guy. "After trusting my gut, turns out partner of 11 years is cheating. First off, I frequently read Reddit but never posted. This is obviously a throwaway, so please politely correct me for any miscues. After trusting my gut, I finally have substantial knowledge, but not absolute proof of my wife carrying out an extramarital affair. Background: wife and I have been together 11 years, married 3. We have had a great relationship, sex was great, exploratory and frequent. I always described us as a perfect partnership. As no surprise, when we had our first child, our personal relationship took a dive, as we both working professionals and focused on our child. Eventually it regained traction and we were just good as ever. Fast forward a couple of years later and she became pregnant with our second child. We worked through some rough patches again, but I felt we made it past them. As mentioned, we are both very career focused and both of us concentrated very hard on balancing work and home life. For what it's worth, I suppose I'm the breadwinner. Our insurance, housing bills and overall comfort comes from my income. It's not that she is incapable, she just happens to be very well educated, MS, in a field that is incredibly low paying. I, on the other hand, chose a career path that is very demanding but well compensated in both income and benefits. I also have been very supportive of whatever career choices she decided on. More school, go for it. Take a lower paying but more rewarding job. You do you, I got us. I even took a position for a few years ago that was very challenging but had way more flexible hours so I could help out as much as I could. Doc appointments, childcare, etc. We also never went along with the traditional gender roles. I change diapers, drop off, pick up kids from daycare, and even tell my boss I can't show certain days to stay home and watch the kiddos because she had to go to work. I do laundry and keep up with the house as much as I can, in addition to the typical landscaping and exterior work around the house. Although I have brought up my concerns that I would like more help around the house, I never complained. Now, the past 12 months have been pretty rough. We have grown very distant and expressed our dissatisfaction with where we were as a couple. And ever increasingly she has consistently started to shut me out, as far as much as resisting any sort of intimacy. Well, recently I've noticed it more and more. It's become a trend for her to get off work later than normal, which is uncommon in her job. Eventually I started noticing Facebook messages coming in late at night and early in the morning. This caught my attention as the notification sound has been turned on recently, which was never the case before. And finally, I noticed several notifications coming in early in the morning, almost like a good morning, and got to the point where she would ensure that her phone was in close proximity when these rang in, just in case I would possibly get a glimpse. Through some clever, although maybe borderline means, I was able to track her location the past week. Typically, her whereabouts were pretty standard, however today I saw a location not just irregular, but 1 to 2 miles away from her work site, dead centre in a residential area to be specific. I left work when I saw this to check it out. After about 30 minutes of searching, I could not physically locate her vehicle. For record, I was not planning on confrontation, just snapping a pic of the vehicle license plate at the site to provide an attorney and possible proof to her. At this point, I am 99% certain she was nowhere near her workplace, as she has never been more than 500 to 1,000 meters away during work hours, and this was clearly closer to 2 to 3 kilometers. I asked about her day, and she said she was at work all day, no detours. Do I confront? Do I continue to monitor until I get proof? Do I contact an attorney now? Any help would be appreciated. I really want to confront because I feel she will relent when I press, but I want to make sure that this can be used to my benefit. Should it get to divorce court? And the first comment says, I've been in this situation before, minus the kids. Trust your gut. My story came to a head when she went out with her sister one night, then texted me at 4:15 AM that she was too drunk to drive home and would be staying at her parents'. Her sister lived with her parents. I happened to wake up to the text and it didn't sit right with me as we lived 10 minutes away on back roads from her parents. So after wrestling with what to do, I decided at 4:45 to drive to her parents. She wasn't there. I drove home, then immediately texted her that we need to have a serious talk when you get home. She replied instantly, I don't appreciate you threatening me. Then she called me while driving and said she was on her way home, a drive which took an hour. There were a lot of red flags, some of which you pointed out in your story. While it worried me, I always tried to make it work. Driving to her parents' house that morning broke me. I realised that I didn't want to live like this. I didn't want to be this person. So when she got home, I calmly told her that I wanted a divorce. It was the best decision for both of us. And I love a story within a story, so I've been looking at that guy's comments a bit more because I wanted more of that story as well. And it says, as I alluded to, there were a lot of red flags for about a year prior. She was constantly going out with friends and her sister, weekends, work days, didn't matter. I knew she was extremely social, but over the years she stayed out longer and more frequently. I just kept trying to do more and be better until I realised there was nothing more I could do. I was taking care of our 3 dogs and cat while doing all outdoor chores and indoor chores. She only cleaned if we were about to have a party at the house. I also paid for everything. I convinced myself that it was okay because she was maxing out her IRAs every year for retirement. It was an actual torture living in a situation where you work and spend to survive only to see your partner going out almost daily to have fun until the early morning. Luckily, I had a few friends who were there for me. Over the course of almost a year, I was a mess emotionally as I was trying to save my marriage and a 10-year relationship. Over the summer we were watching TV, one of the few nights she was home. She was basically just laying on the couch texting a few friends the entire time. Since I was sitting up, I had a semi-clear line of sight to her phone. I noticed a few text messages down from the 2 people she was switching between, while texting there was a single first name in her text messages. With iMessage, you can see the name of the person and the last message sent. This stood out as odd to me, as she either had full names or just numbers, but never first names. The single line I read was also odd. She put her phone on the charger next to the couch and went to the bathroom. I quickly started telling myself, no, don't do it. Then I said fuck it and I looked in her phone. I read the short text chain and then took pictures of it with my phone, all while breaking down inside. When she got back, I mentioned that I sent a text from someone named Nate, and the message said, hey there hippie chick. Which stood out for 2 reasons. The first, my wife is very corporate and capitalist. Second, who texts to someone they aren't flirting with? I asked to see her phone and she willingly handed it over, but moved her thumb around a few extra times while unlocking it, which I very quickly learned was to delete some of the more incriminating messages. I asked her about the conversation and the person, and she played it off, not knowing I saw the other messages. There were other instances where she took girl trips and random guys texting her a few days after, but I never saw those messages. Since she told me about them, I convinced myself that she couldn't possibly be cheating. Instead, she was gaslighting me whenever I would voice concern. It was about 2 months later that I said I wanted a divorce. During that time, I went through a lot of emotions and came to grips with my marriage ending. I talked to a lawyer to understand my state's divorce laws, how the process works, and what to expect, do/not do. That's why I was calm when I told her. I'd been dealing with my wife being distant and leaving for almost a year, while she just discarded me to go and have fun. Her accusing my text of being threatening was part of her gaslighting. She cried about losing her lifestyle. Yes, she actually said that. She cried about coming to the realization that our 10-year relationship and marriage was over. I was sitting on a stool being stoic, drinking coffee with my pup in my lap, and she cried sitting on the floor. I hated seeing her like that, but I have to admit, it was nice to see that she had some emotion towards me and our relationship. Whew, that story was longer than I was expecting. But as I said, I do love a story within a story, and I do find it interesting how people find out like relationships breaking down and how they discover it and things like that and what happens after. I know I'm just a nosy bastard in the end, but I do find it really, really interesting. But regarding the first story, what should OP do in this situation? Should they confront? Should they? I can't remember it again. Is it ducks in order? Get your ducks in order. Or ducks in a line, maybe that one. Damn it, I'm going to get that right one day. Get it all in a line first. Get those ducks in a line first before you do anything, because with your lawyers and stuff, obviously it can get very, very messy. But that would be my only advice in this situation. Before you approach someone, yeah, do that thing that I said. But what would you do in this situation? Let me know in the comments below. Now, once again, guys, thank you for being here today. I hope you did enjoy today's stories as much as I did. And just a huge thank you for being here. It really, really does mean the world. And if you'd like to support this channel further, you can by clicking that join button down below or heading on over to Patreon, link in the description, and joining there. Thank you so, so much for your support, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.